This is video lecture 2 for chapter 7. We're looking at what we call a formula unit. A formula unit is the formula for an ionic compound. And we have to remember that an ionic compound forms when a metal combines with a non-metal. The metals are located to the left of the step. The nonmetals are located to the right of the step, basically. A formula unit does not represent a molecule. There is no such thing as a molecule of salt. If you are a metal bonded to a nonmetal, you must be called a formula unit. We write a formula unit, the formula for an ionic compound, by balancing charges. We find the charges in the periodic table. If you're in group 2, you will have 2 valence electrons and a charge of +2 in an ionic compound. So group 2 will have a charge of +2. There are many differences between a metal and the cation of the metal. The cation is what the atom becomes after it loses electrons. Sodium metal reacts explosively with water. Sodium cations are unreactive in water. Compounds composed of cations and anions are called ionic compounds. But remember, ionic compounds are electrically neutral. So when we write a formula, the charges of the cation and anion have to balance out and add up to 0. So now we're going to start writing formulas and naming. Binary means 2 different elements. Ionic means it's a metal and a nonmetal. Most importantly, the charges of the compound have to add up to 0. And when we name an ionic compound, we never name the subscript. So sodium chloride. If I look for sodium chloride in the periodic table, sodium in a compound has a charge of +1. And the top number of chlorine has a charge of -1. Most importantly, we have a metal and a nonmetal. So sodium has a charge of +1. Chlorine has a charge of -1. So we end up with the formula NaCl, because 1 positive and 1 negative end up adding to 0. But what about magnesium chloride? Magnesium is in group 2, so it has a charge of +2. Chlorine will have a charge of -1. Mg is +2. Chlorine is -1. In order for this compound to be electrically neutral, for the charges to add up to 0, we have to double the number of chlorines. So the formula is MgCl2. 2 chlorines for a total of -2 charge to balance out the +2 of the magnesium. So what about aluminum chloride? Aluminum in a compound has a charge of +3. Chlorine has a charge of -1. So the formula for aluminum chloride is AlCl3. And notice, we don't call it aluminum trichloride or magnesium dichloride. We never name a subscript when we have an ionic compound. So what about magnesium oxide? Magnesium has a charge of +2 in the compound, and oxygen has a charge of -2. So Mg is +2, Oxygen is -2. So this time, the charges, like sodium chloride, add up to 0. So the formula for magnesium oxide is MgO. We don't have to do any manipulation by adding subscripts. So how do we go the opposite way? How do we name the formula of an ionic compound? Since we don't worry about subscripts, it's actually pretty easy. Cs is cesium, so this is cesium oxide. And notice in ionic compounds, the second element's name is shortened down and "ide" is added. So chlorine becomes chloride, oxygen becomes oxide, sulfur becomes sulfide, and a weird one is phosphorus. Phosphorus would become phosphide. So our last one for the day, this would be called calcium fluoride. So we're going to do a lot more naming in class. Believe it or not, that is it for this lecture. We will see you tomorrow.